Hey everyone, I'm Robert Wasman with JRev Media, and you're watching the third episode of Cannacation on Dink's Wonder Emporium. This is a show that focuses on the normalization of cannabis through education. You can expect me to discuss things like politics, research, and the future of cannabis as a whole. And this episode is called The Endocannabinoid System. What the hell is it? In the last episode, you heard me discuss how we combat hit pieces with research and good sources, and that's why research is so important. For any other reason, just to deconstruct bad information. There is a lot being said about the medical capabilities of cannabis today, and we're going to focus mostly on the endocannabinoid system today. This system is in all mammals, and it has a very special relationship to the effects of medical marijuana. Some of you might know the existence of this system, but even people smarter than me aren't completely understanding exactly what the system does. So today, my guest is going to be Eric Sweat from the Medical Cannabis Outreach to talk to us about the system and its other connections and uses and the stuff that he's been doing down there. Eric, are you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing?
Oh, just living the dream. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the Medical Cannabis Outreach in Illinois.
Okay, well,
Oop, Eric, are you still there? Oh, and we lost him. All right, so he'll be calling back, and as soon as he does, we'll get him on there right now. So, what is the endocannabinoid system, right? It's basically a system of receptors inside the body that accept cannabinoids to, work the body. We actually produce a lot of our own endocannabinoids in our own body, and that we can take those outside of it, kind of like dopamine or any other biological chemical. So there's a lot of information to go off as far as that's concerned. Now, while I'm waiting for him to get back on, cannabis has been at the center, and this would be from Project CBD. Cannabis has been at the center of one of the most exciting and underreported developments in modern science. Research on marijuana's effects led directly to the discovery of the unknown biochemical communication system in the human body, the endocannabinoid system, which plays a crucial role in regulating our physiology, mood, and everyday experiences. The discovery of receptors in the brain that respond pharmacologically to cannabis and the subsequent identification of the endogenous cannabinoid compounds in our own body that bind to these receptors have significantly advanced our understanding of human biology, health, and disease. Now, just to give you a little bit of understanding of what they're talking about there. So basically, our bodies have these receptors inside of them specific to cannabinoids. We have our own cannabinoids, but some receptors are specific to cannabis. All mammals actually have this endocannabinoid system, which is inside all mammals. This suggests that we actually evolved with the plant. That during the evolution of mankind, we used cannabis for a plethora of things. And this can be found in ancient China. You can find cannabis buried with the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. A matter of fact, just recently, this year, they found perfectly preserved cannabis from a tomb in Egypt. So it's definitely been something that has been around for a very long time. Oh, looks like Eric's calling back in. Let me see if I can get him on there real quick. All right.
No, it's okay.
Eric, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you get any of that?
No, you broke out there for a second, and I was just telling the listeners, a little bit more about the endocannabinoid system. So as soon as you're ready, we can sit down. We'll talk about, what the Cannabis Outreach the Medical Cannabis Outreach is doing. So tell us a little bit about that, Eric. What are you guys doing out there? What's your focus?
Our focus is to help patients get onto the program. There's an application process that anybody can do, but it's really difficult to do. So what my company does is it gathers all the information from the patient and helps them through the process. We hold their hand. You have to have a fingerprint. We provide that fingerprint vendor for them. You have to have a doctor's recommendation. We help lead them in the right direction, give them the paperwork for their doctor. We want them to talk to their doctor about cannabis. A lot of doctors are not familiar with cannabis because of the endocannabinoid system, which is a totally new word to them. So we use our patients to talk to the doctors to try to educate them so the doctors can learn through our patients about the medicinal benefits that they've had through cannabis. So basically, I have 5 doctors' offices throughout the whole state of Illinois, or clinics, not doctors' offices. We do provide a doctor at some of these clinics if you need, or you can provide your own doctor, which is what we want people to do because.
Oop, lost you again for a second.
You get your card in about 45 to 60 days. Go ahead.
Yeah, I lost you there for a second. If you could repeat that last part.
Okay, yeah. It takes about 45 to 60 days to get your cannabis card. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and once you get your cannabis card, you can go to one of the 60 dispensaries in the state. We only have 60, not all of them are open yet. But you can go to one dispensary of your choice, and you can purchase your cannabis. There's the dry flower from the edibles, transdermal patches, tinctures, the oils. So there's a lot of products that people can choose from.
That's awesome, man. So you basically focus on education through every step, from trying to get your medical license to what you should be using it for and how you should be using it in relation to what your doctor is recommending. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, if the doctors even know what they're talking about. I have taught quite a few doctors about the endocannabinoid system and the medicinal benefits of cannabis, and I have a regimen that I use for patients from 2 months old to 101. I've dealt with to give them the proper regimen of cannabis, whether it be a sativa, an indica, a crossbred hybrid, wort oil, or whatever they're looking for.
Awesome. So the endocannabinoid system is actually a relatively new thing that we've discovered. If I remember correctly, I lost them again. Sorry about that, guys. You know, we're having a little issue with keeping him on the line. Let's talk about, because you told me that, sometimes that you actually have to go, you're not a doctor yourself, but you research this stuff.
Yes.
And you've actually had to educate doctors on this. Tell me a little bit about the struggles of educating someone who's supposed to know about this information, and what you go through on that.
Right. Well, it's funny because it's not any doctor just wants to listen to somebody talk about something that they're not interested or don't have an education on. So to get the few doctors that I've had listen to me, it makes sense once I talk to them. And they collaborate with other doctors to try to figure out a better way of making it happen. But basically, I go to the doctors and I let them know about the endocannabinoid system and how it was discovered in the 80s. And a lot of doctors didn't get the education about the endocannabinoid system. The research that I've known about out of I believe it's 300,000, I'm not for sure on that quote, but 300,000 research studies that have been done, 75% of that has been on the negative effects of cannabis. So it's hard to get any good research when we're doing just the opposite, when we need to, find out the medicinal benefits. So
it's like they're using.
I tell them about the endocannabinoid, how cannabis has cannabidiol in it, also the hemp plant, the CBDs. I try to explain that as much as I can. And to let them know that when we ingest that, then that's what helps us and makes us feel better. The children with seizures, the people with cancer, to help people sleep and to live a better life. We don't like people stoned. We get them medicated. We just tell them if they do smoke to take one little puff or two. We don't necessarily smoke a whole joint or whatever. Again, we just want to take it off in microdoses.
Yeah, I mean, the endocannabinoid system is all the evidence you really need to show that our bodies are designed to take in this type of stuff from cannabis plants. I mean, even hemp, which has little to no THC in it, still produces high CBD. I mean, if you think about it, like I actually just read a study about the balances between THC and CBD. That the reason that you hear a lot of the more old school smokers say, "Oh man, I can't get the weed like I used to get back in the day. You know, it used to wreck me." Well, they just did this research since we started focusing in the 70s on THC and cultivating more THC. That had to make room. You can't just add more to it without taking away something from it. And because of that, we've had less CBDs in our flower. We've had less terpenes in our flower. You know what I mean? And those are incredibly important as far as the effects of the side effects. You know, like because THC
Right,
is.
but we do have the hybrids. You know, we have the hybrids. You know, like Harlessu or the Charlotte's Web. You know, in
Mhm.
Colorado, we have sweet relief here in the state of Illinois from one of the cultivators here, Shelby County, actually, who's one of the medicines that I give to my moms for their children, mainly with seizures, and it's amazing how it works, and it works instantly, you know, and people need to look at this, especially the doctors, and I think they finally are. Again, like I said earlier, we use the patients to train the doctors and let them know the medicinal benefits of this.
Yeah, that's awesome. On the best of your knowledge, explain as much as you can, obviously, for our listeners, the endocannabinoid system and any new breakthrough research that's going through on it.
Well, what I have understood is just that the way I understood it is we all have it in our body. It's naturally made in the plant. So when we ingest something natural and we have a deficiency in our immune system, then it fixes that and it feeds that immune system, and that's what helps people feel better. The CBD is good. We give that to a lot of people and suggest people before they get their card to go ahead and try that because they might not need cannabis. Maybe just the hemp is good enough for them. A lot of times it isn't, but sometimes it's at least a start. The way I explain it is I say CBD hemp is kind of a generic form of the cannabis. When you add the THC, it almost adds it as a super CBD and makes it work that much better in your system. Um, so, and it helps so many different things. So you can try to use it for one thing, and you might find, you know, it's helping you on other things. I'll tell you a story real quick if I can. I had a
Absolutely.
patient who smoked cannabis for a while, and they quit smoking cannabis to get a job. They ended up having seizures, and they didn't understand. And the reason is because they were taking the medicine. Now, when I went to my doctor, I hadn't smoked for about a week, and I said, I have glaucoma. I want you to verify this. So he looks at me and he goes, yeah, you got glaucoma. I said, I'll be back in a half hour. So I went out and I took a couple of hits. I don't live very far from the doctor's office. And I'd come back and I said, do I still have glaucoma? And he was like, wow, how did you do that? And it was amazing because my glaucoma was relaxed from the cannabis. And so you had to show that and prove it to the doctor to, you know, make them think maybe there is something here, you know.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about a little bit about this, and we were talking about cancer specifically. And I found it really interesting. Like you said that, you know, we all have cancer in us, right? We all have that gene, if you will, for it to just build and get out of control on us. And you were saying that you're seeing research that the endocannabinoid system is lacking in certain cannabinoids, and that's why you start to get this buildup of cancer. And the research is showing that when you feed that cancer, which seems counterintuitive, but when you feed that cancer the cannabinoids in which it's looking for, you'll see a reduction in cancer. You want to extrapolate on that a little bit?
Yes. So the research I've done and talking to a couple of doctors, I did read this one article that I'll quote here in a second. Basically, everybody has cancer cells, and this is how I've had it explained to me. And when those cancer cells become active, there is a deficiency in something, and so they metastasize out and they look for something to try to feed what it needs. And so I read an article from a doctor. It said when metastasizing cancer gets CBD's cannabis into it, it, and I quote, commits suicide, is what the doctor said. I talked to another doctor about that, and he said that he believes that this is true because when the cancer is deficient, it's hungry. And when you feed it the CBD, which is natural in our body, then it brings it back to its normal state and makes the cancer just dormant. I have a regimen, microdosing for terminal patients, that have 6 months to live. And I've been with this, given a couple of them 2 or 3 more years of life. They're able to sleep, they're able to eat, they're able to go enjoy their grandchildren or great-grandchildren's birthdays. They're able to enjoy life a lot longer instead of being on all these narcotics and being all drugged up. Drugged up.
Yeah.
This isn't a drug like the doctors are giving them. I mean, these people are out of their minds. They can't laugh. They can't go to the bathroom. They can't sleep. You know, they're not happy. They're crying. They're miserable. And then they pass away like that.
Yeah.
But not with cannabis. They live a happy life and they can do all those good things and die happy.
Yeah, and not only does it help extend the life, it actually helps the quality of it as well. You know, so that you're not watching your loved ones suffer. You know, and that's a big thing for a lot of people. I mean, let's take away.
Family. I mean, it affects the whole family.
Yeah,
The children, the grandchildren, everybody is affected by seeing a sick person, you know, in bed that's dying of cancer and is moaning and groaning, and you give them cannabis, and then they start laughing, and they, you see them sleeping and not moaning and groaning anymore.
yeah. It's almost like happier people are healthier people. Go figure, you know.
Happier people are healthier people. Healthier people are happier people, for sure.
That's
It
awesome.
affects the whole family.
So just to wrap this up, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find the work you're doing. If they need help or need, someone to help walk them through the process, where can they do that?
Let me talk about that real quick if I can. Everybody can help. In your state, call your local representative. Let them know what cannabis has done for you. Talk to your doctors. The doctors really need to be educated. In Illinois, the law says the doctors are the gateway of the program. Well, they're not in, so the program is kind of suffering. So talk to these people. I can be contacted on Medical Cannabis Outreach.com or MCO420.com. You can also contact us, Medical Cannabis Outreach, on Facebook. We have a Chicago phone number, 224-281-0888, Southern Illinois number at 309-338-8900. And we would love to answer any questions, help people hold their hand, take away the stigma. We do seminars at doctors' offices. I'm at the Friendship Festival here in Canton, Illinois, for the next 4 days to try to educate people, hand out what I have. I hand out pamphlets of mine and just try to educate people about the endocannabinoid system. So, and we're not going away. We're not going away. We make people, we turn them into cannabis. We convert them over to cannabis.
Good. Yeah, good. We want you around, man. We need people like you on the front lines trying to push this. Eric, I thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry we had such an issue trying to get you on here, you know what I mean? And but it was good. A lot of great information, and I look forward to having you on the show again.
Yes, I look forward to it. Let me know next time, and I'll get all my crowd into it, too. We'll make this thing huge together.
Awesome, man. And you have a great day.
Thanks for everything that you guys do. You're awesome.
Awesome, man. You have a good one. All right, so that was Eric Sweat from the Medical Cannabis Outreach. He's doing great things out there. The fact that he is going around and educating doctors is just, but it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, let's think about pharmaceutical advertisements for a second, right? What do? They tell you what it does. They tell you the side effects it could have, and then they say, go ask your doctor. And then I've heard story after story of someone seeing some ad for pharmaceutical pills, and then they go to their doctor. The doctor doesn't even know what it is, and they have to educate their doctor on this. So, I mean, cannabis is just the same, man. I mean, consider me your commercial. Go and speak to your doctor and educate them on this. But I digress. So that was, again, Eric Sweat from the Medical Cannabis Outreach. So now, your news. So one thing I was looking into, I had to actually get up on Google Scholar and look for some actual abstracts from scientific studies on the endocannabinoid system. And there's some interesting stuff. This first one I'm going to read you is from ProQuest.com, which is a open-sourced peer-review medical journal. for this one, it's really interesting, right? As you get, it gives a short history. Let me go ahead and read this here. The recreational use of cannabis sativa preparations is known to most people, largely as a result of its explosion during its use in the 1960s. Indeed, marijuana is one of the most widespread illicit drugs of abuse in the world. I don't like the term abuse, but you know what I'm saying. However, the medical use of cannabis is also a millennial history. Although the history has been re-examined only very recently, as early as 2600 BC, the Chinese Emperor Huang Ti advised taking cannabis for the relief of cramps, rheumatoid arthritis, menstrual pain. However, the great therapeutic potential of cannabis was not scientifically assessed and publicized in the Western world until the British physician I'm going to screw this name up, but I'm going to try anyway. Shaughnessy. Shaughnessy. Shaughnessy wrote on the topic in the 19th century. This long history of cannabis use has resulted in the development of pharmaceutical drugs such as dronabinol or Marinol or Unimed, right? The drug based on the delta-9 THCs, which in 1964 was discovered after many decades of attempts to isolate and determine the chemical structure of cannabis, was found to be the most major psychoactive component in cannabis. This preparation, together with Sysmet, which is based on synthetic THC analog, was being prescribed in the United States as an antiemetic and appetite stimulant to patients with cancer and AIDS, even before its molecular mode action was revealed. It took the design of more potent, more potent THC analogs, I'm going to skip that word, such as HU-T10 to reveal that THC acts via specific sites of action to produce its typical psychotropic effects. So this is incredible data. I mean, now this abstract in particular is just going through the history of medical use of cannabis. And like we said, at least started in 2600 BC. That's insane. You know what I mean? Like and like I said before, you know, this implies that we evolved with this plant. And to make it illegal is just absolutely crazy. It's like making your right arm illegal. It's yours. It evolves with you. Even the terpenes that we find are in fruits, vegetables. We even find them in insects like butterflies and some bees, right? Terpenes are all over the place, and they all have good effects. I mean, when you talk about aromatherapy, what gives something a smell? It's terpenes. When you talk about the side effects of marijuana, where do those come from? It's terpenes. So it's super interesting to see that, at least historically, cannabis has always been medicinal. So moving on to the next one. This one's coming from Science Direct. This is an analysis of recent studies. So recent studies have shown that the endocannabinoid system is involved in common neurobiological mechanisms underlying drug addiction. This system participates in the primary rewarding effects of cannabinoids, nicotine, alcohol, opioids, through the release of endocannabinoids in the ventral to mental area. Endocannabinoids are also involved in the motivation to seek drugs by a dopamine-independent mechanism, demonstrated in psychostimulants and opioids. The endocannabinoid system also participates in the common mechanics underlying relapse to drug-seeking behavior by mediating the motivational effects of drug-related environmental stimuli and drug re-exposure. In agreement, clinical trials have suggested that CB1 cannabinoid antagonist rimonabant can cause smoking cessation and stopping of smoking cigarettes. Thus, CB1 cannabinoid antagonists could represent a new generation of compounds to treat drug addiction. So that just literally spits in the face that marijuana is a gateway drug. We're starting to see that specifically the CB1 cannabinoid can help fix drug addiction. Because what are we talking about here? What is drug addiction, right? Scientifically, drug addiction is just you introducing something into your body that produces high levels of serotonin and dopamine, which then in turn you enjoy that. Obviously, who doesn't like a little dopamine? But you enjoy it, and then your brain and your body stop producing it. And then so what happens is you need that outside source in which to continue producing. With cannabis and CBDs, what we're seeing is, since it's natural, we evolved with it, that, our bodies also produce it, but it doesn't always produce it. It's almost like a food. We need to eat it or ingest it for our bodies to receive it, just like any other real chemical, right? So the point is that this can actually help with this dopamine and serotonin productions. It can actually help reintroduce the body into doing it itself. And I've heard plenty of anecdotal evidence to this. As a matter of fact, at the Kush Guide Marketplace where I was at yesterday, I actually met a guy who, was addicted to opiates. He was able to get himself off of it. And he was able to get himself off of it to stop doing so much, drugs. And so he just now uses that information and uses that that data that he has in his experiences to help others get off of this. As a matter of fact, he's a grower, producer, processor, and I believe I might be wrong, I might be misquoting this, but he said he gives 20% of his profits from his company to help people get off of opioids, which is that is a beautiful thing. I mean, I can't applaud this guy enough. I mean, with the push of opioids, especially through the mainstream societies, we've created a problem, and it looks like cannabis is going to be able to solve it for us. So back to the article that I was actually discussing while we were having issues trying to get Eric on from Project CBD. We were talking about the establishment of the endocannabinoid system. It is an established scientific fact that cannabinoids and other compounds of cannabis can modulate many psychological systems in the human body and brain. Cannabinoids are a chemical compound that trigger cannabinoid and other receptors. There are more than 100 cannabinoids that have been identified in the marijuana plant. Of these marijuana molecules, THC, CBD have been studied the most extensively, and such as anandamine and 2-AG that occur naturally in the mammalian brain and body, as well as synthetic cannabinoids created by pharmaceutical researchers. Extensive preclinical research, much of it sponsored by the U.S. government, indicates that CBD has potential anti-tumor, antioxidant, antispasmodic, antipsychotic, anticonvulsive, and neuroprotective properties. CBD directly activates serotonin receptors, causing an antidepressant effect as well. According to McAllister, one of the doctors and scientists who worked on the study, cannabidiol offers hope of a non-toxic therapy that could treat aggressive forms of cancer without any of the painful side effects of chemotherapy. Well, yeah, I mean, you're poisoning yourself when you're doing chemotherapy. Not saying that, you shouldn't if you don't have cancer, but let's be honest about what it is. In recent years, scientists associated with the International Cannabinoid Research Society, or ICRS, have alluded to a number of molecular pathways through which CBD exerts therapeutic impact. For example, a preclinical study by Dr. Sean McAllister and his colleagues at the California Pacific Medical Center in San Francisco report on how CBD destroys breast cancer cells by downregulating a gene called ID-1, which is implicated in several types of aggressive cancer. Silencing the ID-1 gene is thus a potential strategy for cancer treatment. To end this on a quote from McAllister, I already did that quote. I printed it twice. Anyways, but to go back to it, remember, it's a natural part of the system. Our bodies are pretty much a large endocannabinoid receptor. From our brains to our physical cells are all using this stuff. It's a food for our biology. And not only that, it has, like they said, the CBDs have mental protection that we read in the last episode about how CBD counteracts the negative effects of THC. So that if you're smoking something with a good ratio of the two, then, you're most likely not going to have the negative side effects that are associated with THCs. So it's weird that we find out THC gets us high. We cultivated the crap out of it to where we have large numbers, 30% plants, right? But now we're starting to figure out, maybe we should try to go for the 1-to-1 ratio. That might actually work out for us a little bit better. But speaking of addiction and, children using cannabis or drugs, right? This one's coming from Leafly. Cannabis consumption by U.S. teenagers fell in 2016, according to a report by the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. Alcohol use among teens, however, has risen, leaving some to wonder if minors may be substituting cannabis for alcohol. Past month, youth cannabis rates among minors aged 12 to 17 have gently but steadily decreased since 2007. We're starting to see that if we're honest with our kids, they make good decisions. I mean, and that's what we want as parents, right? Or even as a society, is we want the next generation to make better decisions. And the only way that anybody can make a good decision is if it's well informed. You tell people that, if you smoke pot, it'll kill you, or if you smoke pot, it's going to turn you into a criminal, is false. And then, so when kids are eventually told by their friends or family member, hey, smoke this, it's not that bad, everything that the people had been telling them is now brought into question. If you tell them, hey, smoking pot's going to turn you into a criminal, heroin's highly addictive, and, doing cocaine can, really ruin your life, and then they find out you lied about the pot, why would they believe you about the heroin or cocaine? Just putting it out there. Okay, so this next type of business is interesting. This is me personally, as someone who works in marketing and advertising for I-502 businesses in the state of Washington, and eventually trying to move outside the state of Washington. There's this really cool article from the LA Times. So voters in 26 states and the District of Columbia have adopted laws that will legalize the use of marijuana in some form. But so far, Las Vegas-based Allegiant Air appears to be the first and only U.S.-based air carrier to accept advertising for cannabis dispensaries. Allegiant Air's in-flight magazine, Sunseeker, began this month to run ads for Acres Cannabis, a marijuana dispensary and open-view kitchen where THC-infused candies and cookies are made and sold in a shop located just a few blocks off the Las Vegas Strip. Kevin Ford, a spokesperson for the dispensary, said that the ad reminds travelers that flying to Las Vegas that there is sale and use of recreational marijuana are legal in Nevada. It makes sense that he says. Pot went on sale for adults 21 and older in Nevada on July 1st after voters approved the recreational cannabis bill in November of 2016. Ford said the dispensary is considering buying ads in other airline magazines in the future. Industry experts say that they had heard no other airline has accepted advertising from the cannabis industry. Wow, guys, you hear that? I mean, while we're dealing with all the weird advertising laws here in the state of Washington, I mean, you're putting advertisements on a plane that crosses state lines in the state of Nevada. And it blows my mind that that it took this long, that it's still taking long, that we don't have radio advertisements. We don't have television advertisements. Well, that's not true. See, MSNBC, Fox News ran a commercial where someone mentions medical cannabis for the first time, but it's not an advertisement for it. But hey, that's a breakthrough too, right? I mean, do you guys remember the PSAs that we used to have to sit through as children? The woman who was deflated sitting on the couch, the kid who was skateboarding through the neighborhood, and then they were like, marijuana is bad, and do you think it's only happening in the city? And then he sits down with his friend to smoke some weed, and you remember those PSAs? Those were allowed on television, but now that we know that they're all lies, we're not allowed to come out on television and say, hey, marijuana's all right. You know, I mean, it's no worse for you than alcohol. Can we say that? Can we agree with that? You know, and so my point is that advertisement, all this is stuff that needs to be pushed. You know, we need to break those barriers. We need to, what's the word I'm looking for here? You know, we have to break the stigma. We have to, you know, push the envelope is what I'm saying. If you work in the advertising industry, if you work in finance, if you work in real estate, help cannabis people and break that stigma. Trust me, there's going to be two wins out of this. One, there's a lot of money to be made in this new industry. So if you work in other industries that can help this industry, there's probably going to be a lot of money to be made for you as well. And two, you're going to help set up the next generation to have more honest information coming through the mainstream. So moving on to I think it's the last article here. Yeah. Moving on to the last article from the LA Times as well. This one is interesting as crap. So in LA, they're talking about setting up drone deliveries. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, if cannabis beats Amazon to delivering with drones, I will be ecstatic. But if you imagined, according to the article, if you imagine the skies of California would someday be buzzing with drones carrying tiny vials of pot or edibles for recreational cannabis users, think again, because that stoner fantasy was just a pipe dream. California's Bureau of Cannabis Control last week outlined its plan to ban pot delivery by drones by putting a kibosh on any business that was hoping to make a buck on the concept. On Wednesday, the Bureau released an initial study describing proposed emergency regulations for commercial cannabis ahead of January 1st, when marijuana sales with proper retail licensing will be allowed throughout the state of California. In its study, the Commercial Cannabis Business License Program regulations, the Bureau is clear. Marijuana must be transported in trailers or commercial vehicles. So if the message was lost, the Bureau goes a bit further. Transportation may not be done by aircraft, watercraft, rails, drones, human-powered vehicles, or unmanned vehicles. The rule differs from the federal drone regulation, which allows package delivery by drone as long as the device is within sight of the pilot and doesn't fly over people and the product weighs less than 55 pounds. However, this would still prohibit a drone pilot from delivering marijuana. Because the Federal Aviation Administration has jurisdiction over the nation's airspace, the agency encourages local and state governments that are considering their own drone laws to consult the FAA to ensure proposals don't conflict with the FAA's exclusive jurisdiction. In this case, he said, we are not aware of any consultations that took place between California's Bureau of Cannabis Control and the FAA. But not all is lost. If you can't seem to muster up the energy to drive to a weed shop, the Bureau will allow businesses to offer delivery services to customer by commercial vehicle only. Even that option has its regulations, however. Delivery employees may not carry more than a specified amount of marijuana of products at any time. Cannabis products cannot be visible to prying eyes or left unattended. And employees must log on to a GPS system that keeps records of the deliveries as well as vehicles that they were used. But most important, according to the study, delivery employees may not consume cannabis during delivery. So I was hoping, you know, that they would be able to deliver cannabis with drones, which isn't beyond the realm of possibilities, especially since the fact that the FAA even had to have an opinion on it. But for that same matter, we're still having problems with drone deliveries as a whole. You know, what was it? Amazon wanted to do it, but they put a kibosh on that. You know, there's a few others. As a matter of fact, there was some concert groups that were trying to deliver beers in the concert through drones. But again, you have the FAA putting a kibosh on that, and it's run into several problems as far as trying to get out there. So that's your news, guys. We're to the part of the show I like to call cached. Did we learn something today? In today's episode, we discussed the endocannabinoid system. We talked about non-psychoactive benefits to cannabis. Still coughing on that. And if we want to normalize cannabis, just getting high cannot be our focus. I mean, I get it. People shouldn't really care what you do and what you put in your body. But this isn't about just us. Sorry. This is a medicine to a vast number of people. Regardless of what fancy people in offices say, it's a medicine. And it has been since at least 6,200 BC. We know that eventually Big Pharma is going to move into this industry eventually. And what is going to be the best way to combat that? Information, research, and showing that we don't need them to be able to do and get what we need out of it. We need to show these people we don't need you to synthesize it. We don't need you to extract it for us. We're already on top of that. I mean, crap, we have like 7 different forms of ways to extract it. And now we're extracting terpenes by themselves and THCA and cannabinoid powders. We don't need you. And you're going to have to be educated and understand the research to be able to say that with confidence. So remember, we will always be honest. We will always research the truth. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. noon Pacific time here on Dank's Wonder Emporium. Also, make sure you check me out on JRev Media. We have reviews there. We also going to be starting a show called Weed Sipping, where instead of just getting high, we're going to talk specifically about flavor and more of a connoisseur kind of high. And remember to join us here at Dank's Wonder Emporium and on JRev Media to help us achieve normalization through education. Thank you, guys, and keep growing.